going on, y'all? So right here in this video, I am going to do a review of Lenon Honor's manhood training. And these manhood training sessions that I'm going to talk about was from 2016 to 2017. And for those of you who are not aware, it's during this time for the majority of these manhood training sessions was during the whole big move, you know, when Lenon had to beg people to get out the hood. And how I'm going to go about this video is that I'm going to take some quotes from the majority of these manhood training sessions. Now, thankfully, Lenon put down, he pretty much just put down, I guess, a broad overview of what he was saying in those videos, because some of these videos can be long, and if you have looked at Lenon Honor videos from the past, he tends to be very long-winded, tries to take too long to get to the point. So I will say I was fortunate that he did put down overviews of some of these manhood training videos, so I was able to read it in the description boxes, and I took some quotes that was kind of telling, and I'm going to go over these quotes. Now, before I go any further, I want to give some context. These manhood training videos in 2016 to 2017, there's absolutely no mention of how to build credit, no mention of how to maintain credit, no mentions of how to manage your finances. There's no mention of how to invest. Not investing in stocks, not planning for retirement. Since during this time he was self-employed, there was no lessons if you are self-employed on how to build a business, build a brand, how to keep records of your income. A lot of this stuff was not in this manhood training at all from 2016 to 2017. These videos were basically very generic stuff, talking about how to approach a woman, you know, men are needing to solve their problems and all that. And if you look at the very first video, Lenon Honor made it clear that he had to make more videos to bring in income. So it's pretty clear that YouTube was really a big source of income for him. And he was very desperate at this point. And one thing I will give Lenon is this. I will give him this. He's quite the slickster. He's quite the slickster. But if you're somebody like me that's been around the block, you could see it a mile away. One of the things that you will see with Lenon Honor, if you go back and look at these manhood training videos, is that he's always doing something manly as he's talking in these videos. You'll see him working on cars, you'll see him painting the house, and it's trying to give that illusion, especially again to the single, lonely black woman, which is basically Lenon's main target audience. Is basically to give the illusion that he is this manly man, like he's the ideal man to look at. And he's a slickster. He is quite the slickster. I will give him that. But again, for people like me, and I'm pretty sure anybody who's hearing this or who has watched this kind of peeped the game from a long mile away. But anyways, let's get started with the first quote. Anytime that a man brags about himself a lot is a self-esteem issue. He brags about himself because internally he does not value himself. He then overcompensates for his low value by attempting to prove to others that he is of high value. So basically what this quote is basically saying is basically talking about validation. And if you want to talk about validation, Lenon Honor is really the epitome of that. Because here's the thing. How many times has Lenon Honor kept beating it into our heads that he's a father of 5, he takes care of his kids, he's been with his baby mama, or quote unquote married to her for 20 something years, he never cheated on her, they never argue. The fact that Lenon Honor, especially when he's doing these Umar Johnson videos, he often wants to compare himself to Umar Johnson, or more so contrast Umar Johnson. in talking about how Umar Johnson doesn't take care of his kids, but Lenon Honor does. This is what validation is. You having to keep repeating the same thing over and over again about who you are and what you do. And the whole bottom line is that as men, we shouldn't have to seek for validation at all. So this first quote is such a big hypocrisy, it's not even funny. Boys tend to be irresponsible. Men are responsible. Men are responsible financially, emotionally, intellectually, and sexually. This here was such a hilarious quote that I found. Just so hilarious to me. So this guy, Lenon Honor, is trying to do manhood lessons, and he's saying this stuff. But yet again, look at the stuff that he has done. Is he responsible financially? Obviously not, because if he was, he wouldn't have to beg to get out the hood and also beg people to pay for his son's cancer scam. When we talk about emotionally, this guy went on camera in his car on his way to work crying because he has to work. And he did this on camera and he uploaded it to YouTube. So that's not responsible emotionally. When we talk about intellectually, well, let's go ahead and bring up Umar Johnson again. So you mean to tell me a guy in Umar Johnson is going to make a video asking his platform to find your address, and with the platform that Umar Johnson has, not knowing what may happen, you, sir, Lenon Honor, decide to still make Umar Johnson videos, and you claim that you're still making them based on Umar Johnson threatening your family, when common sense would say if somebody's trying to find your address, that means your family is in danger. And as a result, as a responsible adult, and if you want to bring intellect into the picture, you would have realized that you would need to stop if your family is in danger, but you didn't do that. So was that smart? As a matter of fact, that's not really protecting your family at all. And the last part is sexually. This is hilarious to me. So, Lenon Honor has 5 kids. Okay. However, he's struggling. And not only that, though, but you looked at the trap bando that he was in that has 5 kids in it. That was very irresponsible sexually. If you are quick to crying, you have to get that under control. There is nothing wrong with crying, but crying does not solve the problem that made you cry. What solves the problem is critical thinking. One cannot think critically while they are mired in negative emotions. Again, there is nothing wrong with crying, but a man cannot allow himself to remain in a negative emotional state indefinitely. Emotions do not solve problems. They will give you an indicator that there is a problem, but they do not solve the problem. Thinking solves problems. So again, this was another hilarious quote here in these manhood training lessons. And as I said in my last quote, this here's the same dude that was crying his eyes out in the car on the way to work. And he decided to upload that to YouTube. So he thinks that it was a smart idea to upload himself crying to YouTube. This is also the same guy who goes on the internet, talks about this cancer scam. He cries his eyes out, and once again, he sends that to YouTube and uploads it. So if we're going to talk about thinking solves problems, what is the logic in uploading yourself crying? For what? To gain sympathy? To gain manipulation, especially with these single black women? These single lonely black women who are going to feel pity for you and feel sorry for you? So again, this is a guy that's trying to do manhood lessons. And he's saying this stuff, but he's not living up to what he's saying. A man must also be sexually responsible. The expectation for men is that we do not have to be sexually responsible, that we can live a sexually promiscuous lifestyle without consequence. Being sexually irresponsible creates a great deal of dysfunction in a man's life, in the lives of the women that he is sexually involved with, and in the lives of the children that are born from his sexual exploits. Again, this was another hilarious quote because once again, Lenon Honor wants to talk about being sexually irresponsible, where yet again, as I keep saying, this dude had 5 children in which he struggles to take care of. And because of his sexual irresponsibility, it not only affects his baby mama, but it especially affects his children, because it led to them living in a trap bando with the grass not being cut, hole is in the ground, fence is all fucked up, weeds are out there in the yard. It's just amazing, like, reading these quotes. And again, like, this was during 2016, 2017. And he was complaining about the neighbors and shit. But yet at the same time, you're living in a trap bando yourself with 5 children. And the whole thing about it is that when it comes to children, they are expensive. They are expensive. Even if just having one. So if you realize that one child is expensive and you realize that you can't afford another one, why make another one and another one and another one and another one? And one of the things that Lenon Honor loves to talk about is the whole baby mama stuff, about how there's certain guys out here that got multiple baby mamas and how they're sexually promiscuous and all that. And Lenon Honor wants to brag that he has 5 children by the same woman. But again, you may have 5 kids by the same woman, but are you able to provide in a way that your children deserve to be provided with? Are you able to provide for your baby mama like she deserves to be provided with when she's willing to birth you 5 children? That's what being sexually irresponsible is. By not holding your end of the bargain when you have these things happen. Let's talk male-female relationships. It must be understood that there are many people who talk about positive male-female relationships, but have not had the experience of being in a positive relationship. Therefore, when they speak about positive male-female relationships, they are not speaking from a place of wisdom. They are speaking from a place of ignorance. Young men must be very careful about this, because a lot of the information that is online is based upon primp culture. There are many men online who speak about male-female relationships, and their orientation is rooted in pump culture, misogyny, and sexism. So I'm not sure if this was a typo by Lenon Honor. I think when he meant by primp and pump, I'm thinking he means pimp culture. So the only thing I'll say is this. I think it's very ignorant for Lenon Honor to say this, because with my whole thing is that Lenon Honor is coming from a place of trying to cater to these single lonely black women. And when he does that, he gives the illusion yet again that what he says is the correct way of looking at things. And when you talk about pimp culture, misogyny, and sexism, that's usually not the case if you actually look at some of these people who talk about male-female relationships. Now, yeah, sure, are there some people who talk about pimp culture, misogyny, and sexism? Of course. But the way Lenon Honor has presented this quote really made it seem as if the majority of people do this shit. And that kind of reminds me of Lenon Honor on this brigade with the NWA stuff with Professor Griff. I'm getting those vibes when I'm reading this quote. So it's really hard for me to take this seriously at all. Like, it just seems like a very ignorant quote, if you ask me. And to tell young people this is a very dangerous thing to say. When we talk about male-female relationships, I have a saying: all relationships are based upon the value that you place upon yourself. This is why self-esteem is important. The higher your self-esteem, the more value you place upon yourself. How do you raise your value? You develop within you the ability to offer something of value to someone else. You will put yourself in a better position to experience a positive relationship. Now, I really do find this quote Very, very interesting. And this quote really isn't going to be related to Lenon Honor per se, but this quote is going to be mainly related to Aida. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at this quote again, at one part it says all relationships are based upon the value that you place upon yourself. So I really have to ask the question to Aida specifically, what exactly is the value that you placed on yourself when you were in this relationship, especially when you're not legally married? Like you're trying to go by a title that's not real. Like you're trying to be presented as a spiritual wife, and you're being called a wife, but you're not legally a wife. And if you ask me, I would say, and I'm not a woman obviously, but I would assume for every woman on this earth, one of their goals in life is to get married, to actually get married, to have that dream type wedding. And if they can't have that dream type wedding, at the very least go to the courthouse and get dressed up and, you know, have the vows be made and make it legal in the courthouse. I mean, just something that can signify that you are officially committed, that the man that you love, that the man you've been with is willing to make that big leap in committing to you and making a vow to you to be with you forever and ever through sickness and through health and all that other jazz. So I really have to ask, I mean, like for Aida especially, what exactly does your value have? I mean, like, is your value really just being labeled as a spiritual wife? You know, I mean, that's just a very interesting quote, because this guy Lenon Honor talking about male-female relationships and talking about value. But as I said, I have to ask Aida, is your value really being just a spiritual wife? One of the things that you young men have to understand is that part of being a man is being responsible for where you are at in your life. It's not about complaining, making excuses, or blaming other people. It's about asking yourself the question, what am I going to do? What am I going to do as a man? Again, this was a pretty hypocritical and hilarious quote here in the manhood training lessons here. You know, it's just the fact that he wants to talk about it's not about making excuses. But at the same time, he made a video, the I don't know video, and he kept making excuses for why he doesn't have credit, why he don't got his finances together, how come he hasn't done this, how come he hasn't done that. You know, like it's a pretty hypocritical video, but yet at the same time, you're talking about it's not about complaining, making excuses, or blaming other people. So if that's the case, why did you make that video in the first place? As men, it is very important to maintain our calm and to maintain our peace, especially if you have anger issues or childhood trauma you have, to be able to manage that anger and those issues so that they never take control of you. That is part of being a man. A boy is subject to his emotions and will allow his negative emotions to dictate his behavior. A boy is in control of his emotions, and he does not allow his negative emotions to take control of his thoughts, his words, and his actions. Now, I believe on the last sentence of that quote, I think he meant to put a man is in control of his emotions. But as usual with this quote, it seems pretty hypocritical because this doesn't really match with what Lenon Honor has been doing. So if we're going to talk about a boy subject to his emotions and will allow his negative emotions to dictate his behavior, again, this is the same dude that cried in the car going to work, same dude that cried in his house in a robe with the cancer scam, and his emotions led to him having a really suspect behavior by uploading him crying on the internet for everybody to see. When we talk about other negative emotions, this guy decided to do a GoFundMe to get out the hood, and instead of him doing what he needs to do as a man, go out there and work, make his money, save up his money, build up credit, get a emergency fund, and then be able to move his family out of the hood finally. This here quote completely contradicts what he's talking about. It completely contradicts itself. And also, too, not only that, but also when Umar Johnson did those threats, instead of Lenon Honor realizing that his family is in danger, he decided to still make those videos. So he basically sold out his family for those super chats, like Shock and Raw was saying. More and more, I am realizing how much young men need positive father figures in their lives. The 18-year-old was drunk and high, not well educated, and was not taught to respect women. So this particular quote comes from a story that Lenon Honor told, in which him and his baby mama were in the backyard. And apparently an 18-year-old who was drunk and high came by, said hey to Aida. Aida said hey back. The 18-year-old turned around the corner, came into their yard, and started flirting with her. And Aida respectfully rejected him, letting him know that she has a husband. She went back inside and told Lenon. Lenon came back out and basically gave him the riot act. And this led him to talk about this particular quote. And again, this quote gives me the vibe that this guy has some type of agenda when it comes to always beating down the fact of people being drunk and high. It even goes back to the whole big move stuff. People always on drugs and people are drunk and all this other stuff. And it's this, and the thing with this story alone, it just sounds phony to me. Like, it just sounds phony. And again, it goes back to what I said. If this neighborhood was so dangerous and so unsafe to the point where y'all have to do a emergency move out, why was your wife even outside to begin with? Why? I mean, like, is that protecting your quote unquote wife? I don't know, but I just thought I had to bring that quote up because it sounded pretty ridiculous and just sounded like, again, he has this big time agenda against people who drink and who get high. A man who lacks sexual discipline will engage in promiscuous sexual behavior that creates future consequences that are not only self-destructive but also harmful to the women that he has sexual relationships with, and is extremely damaging to the children that are created through such relationships. The irresponsible and undisciplined man should not blame women for the materialization of such a consequence. Instead, he must come to understand that he was the one who placed his penis into the woman's vagina. The woman did not place her vagina into the man's penis. The man was the one who placed his penis into the woman's vagina without using a condom. The woman did not force him to place his penis into her vagina. The woman did not ejaculate into the man's penis. The man ejaculated into the man's vagina. This is why young men must be responsible for what they do with their penis, and they must develop sexual discipline so that they are extremely selective about who they have sex with, when, how, and under what circumstance. Okay, so look, this long ass quote, like, what in the hell was Lenon trying to do with this quote by talking about, you got to stick the woman did not place her vagina into the man's penis, and the man was the one who put his penis into the woman's vagina without using a condom, and therefore the woman did not force him to place his penis into her. It's like, it's like word salad city with that shit. Good God. But again, this quote once again is talking about being sexually irresponsible, and yet again, I will say, Lenon Honor, you had 5 children that you're having to struggle to take care of. If you cannot take care of 1 to 2 kids, why are you continuing to have babies? And from what I understand, there was at one point in time, Lenon was actually trying to talk Aida into having a 6th child, but Aida weren't having that. I don't know how true that is, but if that's the case, again, that's another example of being sexually irresponsible. Young men must understand that part of being personally and sexually responsible means that you must take measure to ensure that you do not impregnate women without careful consideration as to the consequences of impregnation. Young men must also take measure to use the appropriate birth control measures so that he does not become a baby mama creator. So again, this here is also talking about being sexually responsible. And I will say yet again, because this is becoming just a repeat thing. Lenon Honor, you had 5 kids. You're struggling to take care of them. And even though you are not a baby mama creator, even though your spiritual wife is a baby mama because you're not legally married to her, the fact of the matter is, once again, you are sexually irresponsible because you decided to make 5 kids. You're struggling to take care of them. You're not providing the things that they need to get done. And because of that, sir, you went out of your way to beg people for money to get out the hood. You beg people for money to help with a cancer scam. You're begging people for money for a damn keyboard. You're begging people for money to do documentaries where you can honestly just do it yourself. It's like these quotes are just unbelievable of what I'm hearing. And this is part of his manhood lessons, y'all. This is the same dude that's doing these manhood lessons. And the last quote I'm going to talk about here is, boys complain, men don't complain, we get things done. A very high note of comedy here to end off this video. So Lenon Honor, I guess that makes you a boy because you complain about a lot of shit, especially throughout your years here on YouTube, and especially about your neighbors, the same neighbors that quote unquote forced you to move out. So I guess that makes you a boy. You complain about a lot of stuff, and a lot of dumb stuff at that. And then when you complain, it leads you to once again trying to validate yourself to these single black women that you're a father of 5, you take care of your kids, you've been married 20 years, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you're a vegan, all this other stuff that you just want to just list off to get these single lonely black women on your side. Anyways, guys, that is the video for this. Yeah, this manhood training thing was a joke because the man training is a joke. And if you're going to do manhood training lessons, you really have to have your shit together, and the things that you say have to coincide in what you do. So tell me, guys, what y'all thought about this, and I'll see y'all later.